Well, welcome everybody. I'm seeing people all connecting to audio, and right now it looks like there's about a dozen people online. My name is Karuna. I'm speaking to you from beautiful Austin, Texas. I am joined in co-hosting with Chandra, who is the executive director of the Integral Yoga Institute in New York. And we will be joined by several Integral Yoga teachers, current and from long ago. So welcome everybody. Chandra, just want to make sure we can hear you.
Hello everybody, welcome.
Thank you. In an Integral Yoga class, we traditionally start by chanting. And so I'm going to ask Chandra to just lead everybody in a simple Om chant. And because all of the guests are currently muted, you won't hear the resounding sound of everybody around you chanting, but you will hear Chandra and you'll hear your own voice. So take a deep breath, get comfortable in your seat wherever you are, and follow Chandra's instructions and enjoy, and then we'll get on with the program.
Thank you, Karuna. Welcome everybody. It's an honor to be with you today from New York City, where the Integral Yoga Institute was founded in 1966, and these many years later is all over the world. So please, as Karuna said, settle into your seat for just a moment, lengthen your spine if you can. If it's comfortable, close the eyes or look down, and we'll join in the universal sound vibration, Om. Please inhale for Om. Om. Om Shanti, Om Peace.
Thank you. Well, where I wish I were right now is on board the Celebrity Infinity on the Flower Power Cruise. I had the great privilege of representing the New York Integral Yoga Institute last year when we sailed out of Fort Lauderdale. And Callie, if you could please start showing the slideshows while I keep talking, I'll show you some pictures from that wonderful memory. This is the logo of the Integral Yoga Institute that Chandra was just describing. And Chandra, could you explain the next picture to everybody?
Sure. This is a picture of what we call a yantra or a mandala that was created by Swami Satchidananda, the founder of Integral Yoga, whose deep interest in interfaith understanding was pioneering and ahead of his time. He created this to show that enlightenment, which is that star and circle and red spot in the middle, is universal, and that the paths to that sense of peace and enlightenment were many. And so created this lotus, and into each of the petals around the edge placed the symbols of the world's major faiths. So just taking a look around, we have Hinduism, Judaism, Shintoism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and we'll get back to the one on the bottom. Then at the bottom left, we have Christianity, Islam, Sikhism, African faiths, and Native American faiths. In his beautiful wisdom, the circle at the bottom with stars represents other known faiths, but lesser known. And the one at the top is faiths yet to be developed or discovered, and those who don't subscribe to any faith, including in this every human being on the earth, saying, as he put it so beautifully, truth is one, paths are many. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do the next slide. And as I was saying, this is where I want to be, going up the steps to the rooftop terrace at the top of the ship. And that would take us to the yoga class, which we'll see in the next slide. And if you just want to slowly flip through these slides, these are some of the things that stand out of my memory. You'll recognize the teachers were all dressed in white. Everybody else is in their tie-dye. On the beautiful mats that the ship provided, we had brand new mats that had the Flower Power logo on them. And everywhere there were signs reminding us that we could recharge our mind, body, and soul up on the rooftop terrace by taking a yoga class. And it was absolutely exquisite up there with the shade of the top of the boat, and sometimes clouds, sometimes not, and a lot of breeze and incredible views. And everybody got to have a wonderful stretch and a wonderful rest in what is a traditional integral yoga hatha class. And on the Flower Power Cruise event menu, you'll see every day there are integral yoga classes like you see Garuda teaching right here, that you can follow along with in the comfort and safety of your home this week, and just stretch out on a mat or on your carpet and enjoy it. And this is, again, back to the yantra, truth is one and paths are many. So it was a pleasure to teach up there. We also gave this presentation in the Rendezvous Lounge. And I'll just, give me a sec. When I get nervous, I get dry mouth, so I have a glass of water here. We gave everybody, the whole world was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Festival. And our guru, Swami Satchidananda, was the keynote speaker who opened that festival. Just stay on that picture for a minute. And he was, actually, you can go on, he was a monastic yogi who ran an ashram in South India. And here we see him standing next to his gurus, the great Swami Shivananda, the founder of the Divine Life Society in Rishikesh. Well, stay there for a minute. In 1966, Conrad Rooks was filming a movie called Chappaqua, and he wanted to be introduced to a yogi. So he got introduced to Yogi Raj Swami Satchidananda, and Conrad introduced him, and Gurudev appeared in that movie. And Conrad introduced him to his friend, who was the very well-known pop artist, Peter Max. And Peter insisted that Gurudev fly first to Europe to visit him in Paris. And then once he got him to Paris, he insisted that Gurudev fly to the West and go across the country. And what happened was he arrived at Kennedy Airport, and Peter Max hosted him and invited his friends to come meet the Swami, and all of the flower children so much enjoyed meeting the guru that they prevailed on him to stay in New York. And what I would like to do now is to take you back 50 years to New York City, Manhattan, in the 1970s, where I was growing up. If you go on to, oh, I'm sorry, one more picture. This picture is Ishwara, who will be talking with us after we show you a short film. I'm sorry, go back to Ishwara. This picture is taken backstage at Woodstock. Ishwara and other devotees were with Gurudev around the time that this film was made. I'm not sure if it was right before or after Woodstock. So anyway, yes. And if you go on to the next one, I was going to, that's me back in the film. I grabbed a screenshot. And I was attending a progressive experimental high school where my gym teacher led an elective on yoga for a few days. And that inspired me to start looking for yoga classes. And I found one in New York, in Manhattan, that would offer me a class for $1 a class. So I started going on my allowance at the Integral Yoga Institute at 500 West End Avenue. And there was a big old apartment there where the Swami lived in back. After the 6th class, the teacher announced that the Swami would be giving a talk right after the class ended. So I stuck around, and I saw him sitting cross-legged at the top, on top of a coffee table with a blanket on top of it. And I could barely understand his thick Indian accent, but I was mesmerized, and I kept coming back, and so many people started filling the living room of that apartment that we had to move our classes to a bigger venue, to a church. And that is the lead-in for showing this 14-minute video, which will tell you and show you much more than I can. And when it's over, we'd like to invite everybody who's in our Zoom meeting to ask questions. Raise your hand. I think there's a red icon at the bottom of the screen, which will allow you to raise your hand. And when you're called on, your picture will be shown, and we can enter into a group discussion.
Do is just kill a man, but you can't change his heart. You can't change people's feelings. You can't change society. The best result you can get from your violence is the destruction of another person or another society. If you have a fire and you want to put it out, you don't put more oil on the fire or put more logs on the fire. You slowly take the logs out of the fire to cool it down. But fighting violence with more violence, or countering violence with violence, just makes a bigger fire. The power of nonviolence is the same power that moves the entire universe, the natural power that's given within each of us to unfold and to develop our fullest potential, and to spread a feeling of peace and harmony. And that's where the power of the individual lies.
While some young people demonstrate for peace and others seek it in the artificial solace of drugs, here in New York, Swami Satchidananda teaches another way to peace. And on Friday evenings, he helps both young and old in the age-old battle to control the mind, which is the power of yoga, its application to the problems of daily living. To change the world, the Swami teaches, we must first change ourselves as individuals. And from the peace within comes a power for peace in the world outside.
That is the main purpose of yoga. Yoga expects one to reform himself. It is impossible to reform outside without having that reformation within ourselves. We talk a lot about peace. Everywhere there seems to be the cry. Occasionally, or even very often, we hear people shouting in the name of peace that they want to fight for peace. I really don't understand how they are going to fight to find the peace. Fighting is just the opposite of peace. The moment you start fighting for something, you are disturbing it. So instead of fighting for the peace, you should find peace. Without peace in the mind, we can't give peace to the outside world.
In the whole world, the Swami is one of a handful of master teachers in yoga, and since 1949 has organized yoga centers throughout the world, including several across the country. Far from being removed from the human scene, he has immersed himself in it, drawing insights from contacts with the young, finding satisfaction in physical labor, inspiration from nature, and joy from his followers. The magnetic impact of the Swami in the United States prompted him to stay on after only a 2-day visit in 1966. And today he's a resident of New York and the founder and director of the Integral Yoga Institute located on West End Avenue, where each week thousands have encountered a new form of personal discipline designed to elevate and expand their capabilities to cope with problems. While the practice of yoga is derived from the ancient cultures of the East, integral yoga is a scientific system developed by the Swami, its method explained by Hari Zupin, his secretary.
The integral yoga works with the physical aspect of the individual by giving yoga postures, which make the body healthy, supple, strong, and relaxed, and charging the nerves with more energy, and making the glands healthy, which in turn act on the personality and the emotionality. We all know if adrenaline is splashed into the system, it directly affects the emotions. And the practice of meditation works directly on the mind itself, which is another aspect of integral yoga. It makes the mind calm. It makes it peaceful. It collects all of the energy that is usually going in so many directions and focuses it in one place.
Do you think it's related to self-hypnosis?
Not at all. Hypnosis is where you relinquish the control, where you're not in control of your own faculties, where you can't direct them. This is just the opposite, where you begin to get in touch with your faculties, perhaps for the first time, and direct them towards a higher goal. You control the show. You're the director and the actor at the same time.
From the pressures of the business world to the constant nagging problems of domestic life, the practice of meditation and the yogic way of life have very practical values.
You really have to have a lot of strength, behind you. And that's what yoga really shows me, that by doing all of those practices, I am a stronger person. I'm able to have a keener mind, to be able to, be a good mother. I have to work, and as most people, that work, mothers that work, it's really difficult to take care of a child and take care of a husband and take care of yourself. But I've learned, by doing my practice, that I'm able to, function during the day.
Well, since I've been studying yoga and been actively involved in the business world, I'm a real estate broker for one of the larger firms in Manhattan. I find my approach to business and my approach to communicating my product has been increased, I would say 100%.
The success of the Institute's program with young drug addicts has attracted the city to utilize yoga postures and meditation in its narcotics rehabilitation center, Horizon House, and it has employed one of Swami's instructors, himself a former drug addict, Guru Prem, to conduct the classes.
Feel the air just flow in and then flow out, going through the 3 parts of the body.
Many people, hundreds and thousands, have come here with the idea of getting rid of drugs, with the idea of, they would even approach Swami, just sit as lectures and expect to hear him say, well, you must stop the practice of drugs. Simply coming in here and doing the yoga postures, increasing your appetite, expanding your lung capacity, getting some of the smoke out of your brain, getting rid of all the accumulations of years of drug taking or bad habits, in itself just pushes the drugs out the window. And because where the drugs may have been such a preoccupation in your mind, you almost forget that you ever had a problem because you're involved in such a positive way of living. That the drugs, it's just like you forget about it, just like the dirty diapers you wore when you were a kid.
Well, I was brought up, Episcopalian, I went to church every day until I was 8 years old or whatnot. There was always a ritual, but I never really understood beyond the ritual what the real meaning was. And people kept telling me, go to Sunday school and be good, and then they'd turn around and be cruel to each other and drink too much or what have you. And so there was a tremendous contradiction as a child, being brought up in a so-called Christian world and seeing the lack of Christianity that human beings had towards each other. So religion for me was somewhat of a mystery. You know, I couldn't quite fit myself into my upbringing. So I did rebel very strongly. When I was 17, I decided not to go to college and do what I should have done according to my parents and friends and what have you. And I wanted to be an artist, and I painted all my life, and I also wanted to try acting. So I did that. I acted and I painted. But I didn't do it, you know, like to make money. I did it to break down the whole establishment, you know. But maybe that in itself made me step outside and look at my fellow artists and see, are we really helping or hurting things by freaking out society so much?
Everyone is free to do what he wants, no doubt. But your freedom should not interfere with the freedom of others. Okay? Discipline should be properly understood. There is a coordination. You should work together. That togetherness is called discipline. You do things in a proper way, in an orderly way. That is what you call discipline. To achieve anything and everything. If the steering is not there, you can't drive the car. So there is a control. That's what you call it. You discipline the wheels with the steering. See, you discipline the current through this cable. Unfortunately, this freedom is very much misunderstood. People think, oh, let me do anything I want. Once I was driving from one town to the other town. In the middle of the road, a few people were sitting and playing cards. Huh? In the middle of the road. So I stopped the car and walked out and said, what are you doing? Free country. Huh? 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 I must have my freedom to do anything I want. Actually, that in their language, they mean people's government. It's not an imperialism, people's government. So we are all the rulers. I can do anything I want. I see. I am also a person belonging to this country. Oh, you can do anything you want? Fine, then I want to drive over you. Shall I? Then they woke up and, oh yeah, I can't stop you from your freedom. That is where we misunderstand the freedom. You are free to cooperate with others, to see that there is peace and joy everywhere. You are not free to disturb the other man or the world outside. There is a discipline within the freedom that should be very well understood.
I can't explain it. Everyone has their own personal reaction to him, but I had been practicing yoga since September without a teacher, and a couple of friends of mine said, well, that's all very well, you know, and you feel better physically and everything, but you can't beat having a teacher, a spiritual teacher, you know. And I was skeptical and I didn't really know what they meant. And then I went to the Universalist Church where he speaks on Fridays, and something happened to me that I cannot... this is what happens, you know. It's like you suddenly see that he doesn't think more or less of anybody. Everyone he treats with the same amount of love. And all my life I had thought, well, certain people are educated more or no more, and it's like there's no difference. I suddenly realized for the first time, and I'm like 27, you know, that we're all the same. No one is better than anyone else, and no one is inferior to anyone else. And I didn't realize that until I came up, and my friend was introducing me, and I thought, well, is he going to treat me any differently than his own disciples, who he's known for years? Or is he going to treat me maybe better than someone else because he likes my face or something? And I realized that no, I had met the only person in my entire life that treated me with the same amount of love that he did people he'd known for years. The first time, you know, and I blew my mind, you know, so that when I left him, I suddenly began to look at everyone as the same and see myself in them and see them in me, and no longer was there that sense of individuality to a positive or a negative degree. It was like everybody was, we all had God in us, and we were all one.
Wow. Seeing the Universalist Church, am I audible? Okay. Seeing the Universalist Church really brings me back. As a teenager, it was my job to set up the seed and the flowers every Friday night for the lectures. So I would like to open the panel to all of our guests to raise their hands as soon as you like. And I'd like to introduce several people who I'm very honored to have join me. We have Shiva Wick, who was a longtime member of Integral Yoga, and you opened or ran one of the satellite institutes. Remind me which one.
Actually New York City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It had a series of executive directors, right?
Correct.
And
yes.
Chandra is the current one. How long have you been in that position, Chandra?
Well, I became a teacher 21 years ago and immediately started working at the Institute, and I've been there ever since, and I've been executive director about a year and a half.
Thank you. And we also have Jane. Do we have Jane Annapurni online? Thought she was here. Maybe we don't. Oh, there she is. Her American name, Jane L. Wexler, is showing. Annie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I came to the Integral Yoga Institute in April of 1969 and became the kitchen mother there that summer.
What does that mean, the kitchen mother?
We had a residence where women lived in one apartment with the family, one of the people that was speaking in the film, and the other apartment had the classrooms and the men's residence. And we had meals there. People lived there and someone prepared the meals. And I was the kitchen mother for 6 months before I returned to finish my college education. And I've been a student and a devotee and a disciple of Swami Satchidananda since 1969.
She was the other one close to my age. We were the babies in the Yoga Institute, and a little bit older than us.
It's kind of you to say so.
A little bit older than that. We had Ishwara and Sita. And Ishwara, would you like to introduce yourself? You want to tell us who you are and what role you played at IYI? We aren't hearing you. No sound. No sound. While you figure that out, may I ask Sita to introduce herself? She was there before I got there. She was already a teacher, right?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, good. Well, I met Gurudev in the very first wave when Peter Max was inviting people to come to, I cannot remember the name of the hotel.
The Oliver Cromwell Hotel.
Sounds right.
It was on West 72nd Street.
And I had recently read Autobiography of a Yogi, but I had never met a yogi. And I think one of the advantages that our teacher had was he looked like the perfect version that anybody could ever think of as a Swami. You know, he was beautiful, and he had this regal bearing, and you know, he was so connected to us, and we loved him, and he loved us, and I became his secretary. and I wrote his biography.
Oh, yes, thank you for that. That's the exact title of the book is Swami Satchidananda.
His biography.
No, what's the subtitle?
I just
A Modern Day Sage?
No, but that was way after. I mean,
okay,
when I wrote it, I couldn't think of a fancy title, so I just named it Swami Satchidananda, his biography.
That I think it's still available. And I'd also like to introduce one of our newer teachers, and Tavisha and I have never met in person. He was going to be coming on the cruise as one of the instructors. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it was like being a resident at IYI?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet everybody. I moved in 2016 to the Integral Yoga Ashram in New York, and that was after I had done my first teacher training. And it just kind of very seamlessly transitioned. We moved into the ashram. I think one of the reasons why I was meant to be there was just how it kind of came to me. I wasn't searching for anything like that, and I had an opportunity, and I just decided to take it. And I was there for a year and a half. You know, I've taken another teacher training at the New York ashram.
Can you talk a little louder?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just saying how I found myself at the ashram after taking my first teacher training there.
What was it like living in New York City, in Manhattan, in the Integral Yoga Institute? Were you working outside, or were you a full-time worker?
Yeah, I was working in the hospitality industry at the time. So I had a bit of an interesting dichotomy in that I was working later evenings in a restaurant in the city. And then I'd be coming home to this amazing, peaceful oasis, you know, in the midst of all this energy and, you know, somewhat, you know, chaotic energy, you know, you could say of New York. And it was an interesting balance for me to strike between the two, because as a resident, you are asked to, you know, meet certain requirements, hatha yoga practice, meditation practice, some karma yoga practice as well.
And what is karma yoga practice?
You can translate it to selfless service. And it's really just, you know, basically giving some of your time for the upkeep. At least in the context of how it was in the ashram, we would help to maintain the ashram in various ways. So
cleaning bathrooms,
maybe helping with kitchen duties, helping to maintain the yoga rooms, cleaning those. You know, there might be other tasks that kind of were presented to you during that, but just basic upkeep of the ashram to make sure it was in good standing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Callie, Stephen Futral is trying to speak, and it looks like he was logged in twice, and he says you need to unmute him and allow him to show video. Can you do that? I suspect Callie's working on it. We're still seeing Tavisha.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we even hear you.
Wow. Okay, great. So
double. Okay, once.
I had to sign in twice because the first one didn't take. Anyhow, so I was there in the early years. I remember Sita very well, of course, back then. And I too got involved due to reading Autobiography of a Yogi. And after, it was like somehow I was able to just jump in with both feet running. And I was practicing like twice a day and became a teacher. And then eventually
May I interrupt just to say, I remember you as a student at Hunter College and a really good photographer, right? No, I'm mixing you up with somebody else, but you were at Hunter, right?
I went to 4 different art schools, but I did take a few classes at Hunter. And it was through those classes, through some of the friends in a creative writing class, where I found Autobiography of a Yogi. And then I simply asked, is there a guru nearby? And he said, yeah, there's one right down the road. And I walked in and there it was. Anyhow, after many years of being involved, I was asked to start the first Integral Yoga Institute satellite, which was in Canton, Connecticut. And after about 9 months there, then Swamiji asked me to start one in Dallas, Texas. And I was there for a couple of years, and he was very, very gracious and would come visit. I was also, I opened it up to other teachers. So Rudrananda came and talked there, and Swami Muktananda came and talked there.
Great. Thank you. And is there any other teacher who has not been introduced? I think I got everybody. Let's see. Do we have any hands raised yet?
Oh, Karuna, I've omitted saying that I went through teacher training back in the early 70s, but never taught. And whenever I would take a yoga class outside of my own practice, I'd always think, I really know this, I should teach. And through the good grace of Chandra at the New York IYI, I reviewed the teacher training, the full program, about 6 years ago, and have been teaching at the Integral Yoga Institute since then, a service of which I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you.
That's wonderful. And you teach Friday nights, right? A weekly class.
I teach bi-weekly. I share the Friday night spot with another teacher. And the people that come to us at the end of a long work week leave refreshed and happy and restored. And we look forward to being able to do that again.
Well, Chandra, could you please explain what's going on now and how classes are being taught live via Zoom?
Yes, I can. We are unfortunately closed, as is everything in New York right now, as you all know. We had to close quite suddenly during this crisis. We pivoted, you know, as you're hearing, integral yoga has been around for such a long time and had so many processes and schedules and how we do things, and wonderful volunteer teachers like Anna Porney, our teachers teach us service. And all of a sudden, overnight, we closed. And so we, about a week later, we started offering classes online over Zoom, and we are doing it now, learning every day, learning every time. I taught my first classes in the last week over video, and that was an experience different from teaching in the beautiful classrooms at Integral Yoga. So, but we always look on the bright side. That's what Swami Satchidananda taught us. Out of crisis comes opportunity. So I invite everybody on this call to visit our website, iyiny.org, where you will have some beautiful things to download for free. There's an audio version of the class. There's a sound bath. And you can also join our live classes and workshops that we're continuing to have. So it's iyiny.org. Thank you for helping us learn. Thanks for being part of this with us. And right now, with the Institute closed, we're having it painted and cleaned and, you know, looking on the bright side. I don't say if we reopen, I say when we reopen. And so see you online, and hope to see you anytime you come to New York. Your spiritual home can be Integral Yoga on West 13th Street. Thank you.
Thank you. what is impressing me is just looking at the assembly of yoga teachers whom I've known over the past half century. I started in 1967, and is how those early days that you saw in the video have had a really long tail and affected people. I taught at the New York IYI for 14 years, I think from 1968 to 1990, I don't know, I'm forgetting, 13, 14 years. And then I taught a little bit in upstate New York, and I've taught here in Austin. And I'm just amazed by how many yoga teachers there are in the world now, and how yoga is an everyday, what is it, $6 million a year industry. And also how the teachings that Gurudev brought from India, from ancient teachers, you know, and passed on to us, has taken root in the United States. So I'd just like to open up for conversation among all of us to reflect a little bit on how we all, as seasoned and newer yoga teachers, see what's happened. So Tavisha, you want to start that?
Sure. Well, I still do beginner's yoga on my living room floor right here several times a week. And you know, I'm about to be 76 later in the month. And I really do attribute both my physical and mental and psychological vitality to Gurudev and to teachings and to Hatha Yoga. Yay!
I'm slightly younger than Sita, but I'm slightly younger, not much, but slightly younger than Sita. And I too attribute the health that I have experienced up till now to the practice of Hatha Yoga and the teachings of integral yoga, which are actually much more than just the physical practice. There's also pranayama, which is a breathing practice that helps the vitality and the lungs. So I encourage everyone to go to the website, explore, take class, claim your good health, which is your true nature. Om Shanti.
Shiva, you got something to say?
Yeah, first of all, it's really wonderful seeing everybody. Thank you for organizing this, Karuna, and I'm sorry you're not on the ship right now. Yeah, I know you would enjoy that, but I'm in Colorado Springs, and I know Ishwara's in Crestone, and you're in Austin, and people all over. I mean, this is wonderful.
Where's Sita?
And what's
I'm
that?
asking where Sita is.
Oh, yeah, where is Sita? Is she in New York?
California.
Okay.
California. Oh my goodness. Okay, so anyway, it's great to see everybody, and everybody's well, and please stay safe during this challenging time. Just reflecting back, and I know we've all done this, you know, we were all in our 20s. Okay, at that time. This has been 50 years now. Now, most of us are in our 70s, early 70s. I've got children, I've got grandchildren, and it's amazing. In some ways, we were pioneers, okay? Swamiji and so many other wonderful teachers came from the East to meet us students in New York, on the West Coast, all over. And it was a time of change, considerable change, as we know, in many facets of our lives, and social life and political life. And I think that we were part of that. We were part of growth, spiritual growth, developing selflessness, developing non-attachment, and all of these values that we have tried to carry forth and I think will be propagated to the next generation and the next generation. It was just an amazing time, and I think we all agree on that. So thank you, Karuna.
Well, thanks Star Vista for making this happen. Callie, do we have any raised hands?
I don't see anyone. I have everyone unmuted if they would like to speak.
Okay, so you don't have to raise your hands. You can just speak up.
I'd like to add something to what Shiva said, and say also to Sita, I tried to write a book about integral yoga, a biography of the organization, and it was several years ago that I had the pleasure of interviewing so many different people who had been around in the beginning of this really amazing organization that just kind of organically popped up because of the teachings of Swami Satchidananda and how they resonated with so many people, and just continued to grow organically over the years. Just more people wanted to come, more people wanted to become teachers, more people wanted to access these teachings for their lives and for the life of the community and the planet. And I think that these teachings are more relevant today than ever before, that I hope that the legacy of our generation is to teach and talk to and share with all the people in their 20s and 30s and say, listen, this is a good plan. You know, yoga and the values of the Woodstock generation have it's almost a blueprint for saving our health and our food and our planet and ourselves, and forging a better world. So I'm so honored to be part of integral yoga, and I believe in it as much today as I did the first day I walked in the door. So it's been great to be with all of you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to, first off, I didn't recognize Shiva, and I'm very, very lucky that of all the various students that I'm still in touch with, he actually came down after a retreat and visited me here in Crestone. And that was totally delightful. So hello there, Shiva. Anyhow, yeah, you know, I was very, very fortunate in that the first time Swamiji went to India, he took a whole group of people, but he went around the world in the opposite direction. Whereas Eddie Shapiro, Swami Eddie, otherwise known as, Ken Green, Krishna, and myself, we went, well, here's what happened, is back then there was a flight, Icelandic flight to Luxembourg for like $200. And we had already bought the tickets, and all of a sudden, Eddie Shapiro gets in touch with us, and he found tickets for $90 to Rome. So we changed, and we got on this charter flight that had, if I remember, there were like live chickens. It was definitely strange. Anyhow, we got to Rome, and we went from Rome to India by land, and met up with Swamiji in Calcutta. So we came the other way. Anyhow, we went through all of India with Swamiji, visiting all these places that you couldn't get into unless you were with him. And then we spent 3 months down in Sri Lanka at his tapovanam or ashram. And then we came back. And when we came back, we were all on stage and participating at Woodstock. And that was a whole other experience. And Sita, who I've been in touch with a little, said, I said, I didn't see you on stage. She says, I was hanging out with the musicians on backstage. So, yeah, it's there's a connection, camaraderie. It's similar to what I'm feeling now with this, I'm working on a memoir for one thing down in Crestone. I also paint. And for, you know, the past 30, 40 years, I've been involved with Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. But one never forgets Swamiji, is all I could say. And the feeling I have now with this pandemic is that on the silver side of the situation is the world, we have all become connected. I mean, we're always interconnected, but now there's a planetary awareness. And I feel that that's very similar to what we experienced with yoga. And on another note, both my daughters do yoga. I never prompted them, even when they were growing up. And they're both teachers. And I must say that today's modern yoga has got too much of that exercise mentality and commercialization. But she always honors Swami Satchidananda and is very aware of the difference and my attitude towards the way she teaches. Still many, many people benefit. And the reason she got into that is for many years she was director of grants for women's human rights and wound up traveling into over 40 countries and saw and realized how much pressure and how much anyhow she saw the need after 7 years of doing that to perhaps teach yoga to these human rights helpers. So anyhow.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, well, we don't have any hands raised and everybody's unmuted. We may have completed our conversation. Anybody want to add anything else?
Well, I'll just add that I also had the pleasure of Karuna herself visiting me here in Crestone.
That was a treat.
Yes, that was a treat. And yeah, any other people that might be down this way, you're always welcome.
Well, one of the beautiful things that I'm finding through the Facebook and now through Zoom and with everybody reaching out in this time when we're supposedly separate, but we're really connected, is how close I feel to the integral yoga family. I think that's what attracted me to yoga when I was a teenager. I didn't feel particularly popular in my high school, but I could hang out with some really cool hippies who were a little older than me by going to the Integral Yoga Institute. So I got there as often as I could and became the after-school receptionist. And as soon as I was old enough to move out of my parents' house, I moved in and lived in the Yoga Institute in Manhattan for 2 years. First at 500 Weston Avenue and then going down when we bought the building on 13th Street. And then I moved away from my family. I went out and started living on my own. But I've always, of all of the people in my life, I feel a great kinship with all of the other students. And I am now seeing gazillions of people practicing yoga that they may have learned in another lineage, but I am realizing more and more how the whole family of Earth is connected and how so many of us now practice yoga and get to enjoy it and live healthier, more stress-free lives thanks to yoga and the things that we learned from Swami Satchidananda back in the 60s.
Hear, hear.
So, Chandra, lead us in the closing Om. And maybe Om Shanti, the peace chant.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. This will be a responsive chant.
Well, we're all unmuted. Yes, we can chant.
Okay.
I don't know if we'll all come together. It might be a little echoey, but we can experiment.
Let's try.
Okay.
Okay, so again, just settling into the moment, getting connected with the peace inside that Swami Satchidananda taught us all is our birthright. So inhale and call and response. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om.
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 Om Shanti, Om.
Om Shanti, Om.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.